You'll never be enough, my friends whispered. I proved them wrong. Their apology turned into begging. I forwarded them the application link to join my team. I'm Alex, 28 years old, male, and for most of my life I've been the sidekick in my own friend group. You know that dynamic where you're not exactly bullied, but you're definitely not respected either? That was me. Always the butt of the joke, the one they kept around for cheap laughs or last-minute errands, like some human background prop in their movie. The ringleader was Jason, 29, male. We'd been friends since high school, but that word feels like a stretch. He was the type who thrived on dominance, loud, quick with a jab, and always making sure everyone knew he was the alpha. Then there was Melissa, 27, female. She had this passive-aggressive sweetness that could turn venomous in a blink. To outsiders, she looked like my closest friend, but she knew exactly how to cut me down in private with these soft, whispered digs that felt like paper cuts straight to the soul. The line that broke me came at a bar 2 years ago. I'd been rambling about applying for this competitive leadership program, something I'd quietly been working on for months. Melissa leaned in, smile glued on, and whispered into her wine glass, "You'll never be enough for something like that." Jason, of course, caught it and repeated it loud enough for the table to hear, like it was the funniest punchline in the world. Everyone laughed. I laughed too because that's what I'd been trained to do. But inside I was burning. That sentence branded itself on me. You'll never be enough. I went home that night shaking, staring at my bathroom mirror, muttering their words under my breath until my face twisted into something I barely recognized. And then, like some ugly movie cliché, I started taping notes around my apartment. Sticky notes on the fridge, the closet, even the bathroom mirror. Each one with the same phrase, "You'll never be enough." Not as a wound this time, but fuel. Every morning, I forced myself to read it, and then outwork the voice. I applied for the program. I poured myself into projects. Late nights, 70-hour weeks. Brutal self-discipline. I cut out distractions. Sometimes even food felt optional. And slowly, painfully, I climbed. What Jason and Melissa didn't know was that by the time they were still giggling over bottomless brunches and tagging each other in dumb memes, I was grinding myself into someone they wouldn't recognize. And when the acceptance letter came, when I got the role not just as a participant but eventually as a team lead, I didn't tell them. I kept it quiet. I let them keep whispering. Let them keep joking about how I was probably still living like a college kid with a dream board. Because the higher I climbed, the sweeter the fall was going to be when I finally snapped the trap shut. And trust me, that day was coming. Jason wasn't always a monster. That's the worst part. In high school, he had this effortless charisma, the kind of guy who could skip class, charm the teacher later, and somehow still pass. I was the quiet one, the guy who helped him with homework in exchange for being included. At the time, it felt like friendship. Looking back, it was servitude disguised as belonging. Melissa came later, college years. She wasn't flashy like Jason, but she had this insidious way of sliding into people's weak spots. She'd wrap an insult in silk so well, you didn't even notice the sting until hours later. With her, it was always, "I'm just being honest, Alex." Like honesty gave her permission to cut me open. One memory sticks. Senior year of college, I landed a small internship at this scrappy nonprofit. I was proud. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Jason laughed and called it community service cosplay. Melissa added, "But it's cute you're trying. At least it'll look good on a resume for Starbucks." I laughed along, but I remember walking home that night, fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. This pattern never changed. Whenever I had something, anything, they'd find a way to minimize it. Got promoted? Jason smirked. "So you're middle management now? Congrats, boss man." Melissa, "You're working way too hard for too little. Don't you ever just accept reality?" But what really poisoned me was how they'd say one thing in public and another in private. At parties, Jason introduced me as his day one brother, but when we were alone, he'd jab about how I'd be lost without him. Melissa, to everyone else, was my biggest supporter, but in quiet moments she'd whisper, "You're lucky we keep you around. Without us, who would you even be?" I started to believe them. That's the sickest part. Their voices weren't just noise anymore. They were inside me, whispering when I was alone, when I hesitated before applying to jobs, when I second-guessed myself on dates. You'll never be enough. And still, I stayed. Because loneliness felt heavier than their cruelty. Because I'd been conditioned to think scraps were the whole meal. But something was shifting inside me. Those sticky notes I put up weren't just for motivation. They were battle cries. Every sneer, every whispered insult, I banked it like currency. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was interest accruing. And when opportunity finally cracked open, a program that could change my life, I didn't tell them. For the first time, I had something they couldn't touch. I didn't know it then, but withholding that secret was the first move in a game I was finally ready to play. The funny thing about changing your life in silence is that no one notices, at first. Jason and Melissa kept me slotted into the same role, the backup singer in their band. Jason still dragged me to bars I didn't want to be at, slapping my shoulder like I was his mascot. "This guy right here, he's the glue. Couldn't survive without him." Everyone laughed. I smiled, but inside I thought, yeah, you actually couldn't. That's the problem. Melissa kept up her subtle digs. Once, when I showed up in a new suit, bought for interviews, she tilted her head and whispered, "It's nice. Kind of looks like you borrowed it from someone more successful, though." My blood went cold, but I didn't bite. Not anymore. I was learning that silence could be sharper than any retort. What they didn't see was how different my nights had become. While they wasted weekends on hangovers and gossip, I was grinding. Networking events where no one knew my history, leadership seminars where I forced myself to speak up, projects that had me sleeping 4 hours a night but glowing inside with this hunger I'd never known. And it worked. The program I applied to? Not only did I get in, I excelled. Suddenly, doors opened. I was leading small teams, pitching ideas to executives, building something that mattered. For once, people weren't laughing at me. They were looking to me, depending on me, respecting me. But I kept it all quiet. To Jason and Melissa, I was still just Alex, their fallback. They never asked much anyway. Our friendship had always been a monologue about their lives. But when I started saying no more often, that's when the cracks showed. Jason flipped first. He called one Saturday at 10 p.m., slurring, of course, demanding I come pick him up from some dive. I said I couldn't. I had an early meeting the next morning, silence on the line. Then a hiss. "You think you're better than me now?" Click. Melissa escalated differently. She leaned into emotional sabotage. Sent me late-night messages like, "You've been distant. Are you embarrassed of us now? Just admit you'll never fit in anywhere else." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, before shoving the phone face down. That was the thing. I wasn't embarrassed of them. I was done with them. But they weren't going to let me go quietly. Toxic people never do. I realized something then. My silence wasn't just power, it was provocation. The less I explained, the more unstable they became. And part of me liked it, watching them twitch when they couldn't figure me out, watching the balance start to shift. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about making them feel the way I'd felt for years. Small, desperate, scrambling to belong. And soon, I'd get my chance. The breaking point came at a party, not a huge one, just a birthday gathering for an old mutual friend from high school. I almost didn't go. By then, I'd learned that being around Jason and Melissa was like volunteering to get punched. But something in me wanted to show up, not for them, but to remind myself I wasn't hiding anymore. I walked in wearing that same suit Melissa mocked months ago. Except now, it wasn't just a suit, it was armor. I'd just come from presenting a project to executives who actually valued my input. My pulse was still buzzing with adrenaline. For once, I didn't feel like a shadow in their spotlight. Jason spotted me first. He was already 3 beers in and, loud as always, soaking up the crowd with recycled high school stories. "Alex," he bellowed, "my man, looking like a wannabe Wall Street intern." "What, you selling life insurance now?" Laughter rippled through the room. I smiled, said nothing, just poured myself a drink. Silence. It landed heavier than any insult I could have thrown back. Melissa slithered up minutes later, glass of wine in hand. "You've been so quiet lately. People are starting to wonder if you're ashamed of us." She tilted her head, voice low but aimed to wound. "Or maybe you're just embarrassed you'll never measure up." There it was, the phrase, Never be enough. My chest tightened, but instead of cracking, I felt this strange calm wash over me. I leaned down, just enough so only she could hear. You'll see soon. Her smile faltered for the first time in years. Jason didn't let it drop. He climbed onto a chair, waving for attention like a drunk ringmaster. Hey everyone! Remember back in college when Alex thought he was going to run some nonprofit empire? What happened to that, buddy? Oh, right, you're still clocking in 9 to 5, dreaming big. The room chuckled. But it wasn't the roar of easy laughter he expected. People glanced at me, waiting to see if I'd take it. For the first time, I didn't shrink. I met his eyes and said, clear and steady, I don't need to explain myself anymore, Jason. It was like a record scratch. His smirk twitched, faltered, and for a second I saw something behind his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Melissa tried to patch it with a quick, don't be so sensitive, Alex, we're only teasing. But the tone was off. The balance was shifting. I left early that night, but not before catching Jason watching me from across the room, jaw tight, beer bottle gripped like a weapon. Melissa leaned against him, whispering furiously in his ear. And I knew. They felt it. The power tilting, the control slipping. Walking home, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. You think you're better than us now? Careful, Alex. We made you. We can break you. I didn't reply. I just smiled at the screen, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of their threats. I was planning their downfall. Update 1. Okay. This blew up faster than I expected. First, thank you to everyone who read the first post and actually saw the bruises under the jokes. I've been sitting on this for years and your messages have been wild. A few things I want to get off my chest because y'all's takes actually helped me see my next move. First, the numbers. Inbox full, DMs piled up, a half dozen people offered me jobs, and at least 3 folks sent screenshots of their own versions of Jason and Melissa. That last part made me feel less insane. You're not alone in getting gaslit by friends who wear supportive as a costume. Standout comments that made me laugh, cry, flip a table. Cut them off and live your best life. 10-10, simple, elegant, accurate. I'm doing this, but there's a but coming. Be the adult, don't stoop. That one showed up in a few comments, respectable, tried that. Jason called it boring, and Melissa called it a passive-aggressive midlife crisis. Still, being measured is part of the game now. Public delicious revenge, please. Okay, a lot of you love theater. I heard you. Forward them the application link to join your team. Someone typed exactly the thing that made my chest do a weird, satisfied little hop. More on that below. People DM'd everything from I'm proud of you to 2 paragraphs of unsolicited psychoanalysis. Thanks, therapist wannabe. One user sent me templates for professional leadership bios. A stranger sent me a PDF on assertive boundary scripts. Another sent a voice memo singing, You go, Glen Coco. I saved that one. I want to be honest about the advice that stung. A handful of commenters called me petty or performative, said I was weaponizing a breakup with friends. I read them, let it sit, and, surprise, some of them were right. There are lines I won't cross. I'm not after humiliation for humiliation's sake. I want accountability that hurts the pride, not people. That's why the application link idea resonated. Not a revenge stunt that destroys lives or crosses the law. A slow, precise flip. I'm building a team at work. Genuine leadership roles, real responsibility, a ladder that leads somewhere. I work with smart people. We've got a hiring portal, an intake form, interviews, references, the whole 9 yards. If someone truly believes I'm never enough, nothing will make them realize how wrong they were faster than standing in front of the group I lead and seeing the respect, or being forced to answer for years of whispering and undermining in a professional setting. Before anybody yells petty, think of it like this. Your friends who were mean to you for years show up to the one place where your work, your values, and your authority matter. They either step up or they reveal themselves. That's accountability. That's theater, yes, but it's also the job market's version of truth serum. Oh, and some real-world fallout. Jason left me 3 voicemails that ranged from, you'll regret this, to an expletive-filled collapse. Melissa texted, watch your back, then sent a second message an hour later begging for a coffee. Classic oscillation, I saved them. So what did I actually do? I started formalizing things, updated my resume, wrote a hiring brief for a new project team, sketched an application form that asks for references, real examples of leadership, and, crucially, a short essay question about how applicants handle criticism. If you think that's petty, fine. If you think that's clever, welcome to the club. Next post, I'll share how I polished that hiring page and the exact language in the application, the part that will make them squirm or, if they're honest, make them apply. Some of y'all said, burn everything down. Tempting. Instead, I'm building a ladder and sending the rungs to the people who told me I'd never climb. Thanks again. Your DMs have been a weird, healing patchwork. Keep them coming, especially the good memes. They keep me human. After that party, things shifted fast. Jason and Melissa weren't content to just let me drift away. They started hunting for cracks. Jason showed up outside my apartment one night, pounding on the door so hard I thought the hinges would give. I didn't answer. He screamed through the wood anyway, drunk slurred threats that bounced down the hallway. You think you're hot shit now? You'll always be nothing without me. A neighbor called security, and by the time I cracked my blinds, Jason was red-faced, wrestling with two guards like a toddler in a tantrum. They dragged him out, and I stood there in the dark, shaking. Not scared. Thrumming with something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Melissa's attack was sneakier. She slid into my professional world. Someone sent a mass email to my new colleagues, unsigned, of course, claiming I'd lied about my achievements, that I was a manipulative climber who uses people. It was laughably transparent. But seeing her venom in writing, aimed at the one part of my life she couldn't reach, set my teeth on edge. Instead of panicking, I forwarded it to my director with one line. Seems like someone from my past isn't handling boundaries well. My director's reply, happens to the best of us. Don't worry, we see your work. That reassurance felt like a shield. Melissa's whisper campaign had fizzled before it even lit, but their desperation only fueled me. I finalized the team application portal. Clean, professional, impossible to fake. And then I wrote the question that would sting them most. Describe a time you doubted someone, and what you learned when they proved you wrong. When I read it back, I laughed out loud. It was surgical. The timing lined up perfectly. A new project meant my department was expanding, and HR asked us to circulate the hiring link to our networks. I sent it out broadly, no names mentioned, but I made sure Jason and Melissa got it. Forwarded the link with a short note. Thought you might be interested. I imagined their faces reading that line. Jason, fists clenching around his beer. Melissa, eyes darting across the screen, calculating. And then, the fallout hit quicker than I expected. Jason blew up my phone. This some kind of joke? You think I'd work under you? Message after message, climbing from rage to pleading. Maybe we could do something together, man, like old times. Melissa's was worse. She called, I let it ring out, then texted a photo of herself crying. Please don't shut me out. I didn't mean the things I said. Then 2 minutes later, you owe us. Without us, you'd be nothing. Their chaos spilled into the real world. Jason got into a fight at a bar after someone joked about him applying for Alex's team. Melissa showed up at my office lobby uninvited, asking to see me. Reception turned her away, but I watched from the mezzanine as she stood there, shaking, muttering to herself before storming out. It was working. My silence, my success. It wasn't just proving them wrong. It was breaking them. But I wasn't done. Not until they'd felt the full weight of every whisper they'd ever thrown at me. The night Jason shattered my window, I stopped pretending this was just petty drama. I came home late from work, exhausted but buzzing from another successful pitch. The hallway smelled like stale beer before I even reached my door. And there he was, Jason, slouched against the wall, eyes bloodshot, clutching a bottle like it was an oxygen tank. Man, we need to talk, he slurred. I didn't even slow down. Not tonight. That's when he hurled the bottle. It exploded against my door frame, glass and amber liquid raining down, sharp enough to slice my knuckles as I blocked my face. My chest went ice cold. You think you're too good for us now? He roared. You're nothing without me. Then with this manic grin, he rammed his elbow into my window, shattering it clean through. The sound echoed down the block. Neighbors came out. Someone shouted they were calling the cops. Jason bolted, stumbling down the stairwell, muttering my name like a curse. I spent the night sweeping shards out of my kitchen and pressing a rag to my bleeding hand, staring at the empty space where the glass had been. My reflection was fractured in 1,000 tiny pieces across the floor, and I thought, this is exactly what they wanted me to feel. Broken, unsafe, small. Melissa wasn't quieter. The next morning, I walked out to find my car keyed. Deep, ugly scratches carved across the driver's side. 3 words gouged into the paint, shaky but legible. Never enough. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. They weren't just mocking me anymore. They were branding me with the very words that haunted me. I filed a report with the police, showed them Jason's voicemails, Melissa's texts. They nodded, promised to keep an eye. But I knew better. Paperwork wasn't protection. At work, though, different story. My director pulled me aside. HR had already flagged Melissa trying to get into the building. They'd tightened security, offered me an escort to my car. And when I told them about the vandalism, they didn't flinch. If either of them contacts you again, bring it here. We'll back you. That safety net gave me clarity. Their desperation wasn't proof I was weak. It was proof they were losing. So I doubled down, finalized the team roster, sent out a second round of invites for applicants, and again, slid that link to Jason and Melissa. Not as bait, not even as a joke, but as a mirror. Let them see exactly where I stood, exactly what I'd built, and exactly how far away they were from ever touching it. That night, my phone lit up with notifications. Dozens of them. Both Jason and Melissa, frantic, circling between rage and begging. Jason swore he'd ruin me. Melissa promised she'd make it up to me if I'd just let her in. The contradiction would have been funny if my window wasn't still boarded up. But as I read those messages one after another, something clicked. They weren't my jailers anymore. They were my applicants. Update 2. Y'all weren't kidding when you said it would get worse before it got better. First off, to everyone who DM'd me after Update 1 saying, "Be careful, toxic people escalate when you stop feeding them." You were right. Dead right. I thought I was braced for drama. I wasn't braced for a smashed kitchen window and never enough carved into my damn car door. Yeah, that happened. Police report filed, photos attached, neighbors backing me up. Jason drunk outside my place like some rejected extra from cops. Melissa scratching my car like she was signing her artwork. A few of you literally wrote, "Bet they'll vandalize something." I laughed at the time. I'm not laughing now. And to the handful of people who messaged, "Don't poke the bear, just cut them off." Trust me, I hear you. But here's the thing. Cutting them off isn't neutral anymore. I tried that. They turned it into war. Every whisper, every jab, every smear campaign, this is the endgame they wrote for themselves. Some standout Reddit wisdom since the last update. At this point, they're not friends. They're unstable stalkers. Treat it accordingly. Yes. It's poetic that the words they used to crush you ended up on your car. Ugly poetry, but poetry. Dark, but you're not wrong. Get cameras, get receipts, and when you flip it back on them, make it clean. Already ahead of you. Security's tighter at work. HR knows the situation. My building just installed new surveillance. Every receipt is mine now. Forward them the link again, but this time with a note. Applications are open. Whoever suggested that, you're a prophet. So here's where I'm at. I'm done hiding. The application portal is live, professional, legitimate, bulletproof. And yes, I slid it their way again. But this time I didn't just send the link. I added a message. Spots are limited. Good luck? Jason's response? 3 voicemails ranging from "fuck you" to "bro, I'll do whatever it takes, just don't shut me out." Melissa's, a half apology, half love letter text that ended with, "I'll prove myself to you if you give me the chance." They don't even realize it yet, but they're playing on my field now. My rules. My structure. My power. And I can't lie, part of me feels almost giddy. Not because of revenge in the cartoon sense, but because I get to watch them twist themselves into knots trying to climb a ladder they swore I'd never touch. The best comment I saw after my first post was, "Let them beg. Make them knock on the door they swore you'd never build." Guess what? The door's open. And soon, You'll see who walks through it on their knees. The applications went live on Monday. By Tuesday afternoon, I had over 40 submissions stacked neatly in the portal. Most were qualified, polished professionals. But buried in the pile were two that stopped me cold. Jason. Melissa. Jason's was a train wreck. He clearly thought volume equaled value. 3 paragraphs of chest thumping about his natural leadership skills, half of it recycled from his old football glory days. My favorite line, people respect me because I take charge, not because I kiss ass. Sure, Jason. Nothing says leader like throwing a beer bottle at someone's door. Melissa's, on the other hand, was surgical. Polished resume, inflated job titles, cover letter dripping with insincere humility. She even answered the essay question, the one about doubting someone who proved her wrong. Her response? I once underestimated a close friend, but learned the importance of support. I've grown from that. I nearly choked laughing, the audacity. I didn't reject them outright. No, that would have been too merciful. Instead, I flagged their applications for review and sent the standard auto response. Thank you for applying. We'll be in touch regarding next steps. And then I waited. By Thursday, Jason was blowing up my phone. Hey man, just checking in. Saw the email. Thought maybe you and I could talk one-on-one. You know I'm a better fit than those strangers. The tone had shifted. No rage, no threats. Just neediness. Desperation. It was intoxicating. Melissa played coy. She emailed the generic HR inbox asking for an informal coffee chat to discuss her alignment with the role. HR forwarded it to me with a raised eyebrow emoji. I told them to ignore it. The real coup came during Friday's group info session. A virtual call, open to all shortlisted applicants. Jason and Melissa both logged in. Cameras on. Names displayed. Dozens of faces filled the screen, professionals ready to impress. And there, in little squares side by side, were the two people who'd spent years whispering, "You'll never be enough." I kicked off the session with my camera on, full suit, calm smile. The chat pinged with greetings. Jason's face went slack. Melissa's lips parted like she'd been slapped. Welcome, everyone, I said evenly. I'm Alex. I'll be leading this project and reviewing your applications personally. The silence from their windows was deafening. Jason squirmed, glancing off screen like he wanted to crawl out of his chair. Melissa tried to plaster on her practiced smile, but I caught the twitch at the corner of her mouth. And here's the sweet part. I didn't call them out. I didn't humiliate them directly. I treated them exactly like everyone else. Professional, respectful, nothing more. Because the humiliation wasn't in what I said. It was in what they saw. Me, at the head of the table they'd once barred me from. When the session ended, Jason logged off without a word. Melissa lingered, as if waiting for me to notice her. I didn't. That weekend, Melissa texted me. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please, let me prove myself to you. Jason sent nothing but a single word. Please. For the first time in my life, they were the ones begging at my door. And I wasn't even done yet. After the info session, it was like watching dominoes fall. Jason was the first to implode. Word got around fast in our old circles, people whispering about how he'd applied to work under Alex. I didn't spread it, but gossip is a virus, and Jason had spent years feeding it to survive. Now it was biting him back. One night, I got a call from a mutual friend. Jason had blown up at a bar again, punching a guy who joked about submitting references to Alex. This time, it wasn't just rowdy drunk chaos. He got arrested, mugshot online. The same smirk he used to wear when mocking me now frozen into something broken, desperate, small. Melissa's downfall was quieter but sharper. After she sent that text, "Please, let me prove myself to you," I didn't respond. Days later, I got an email from HR. She'd tried to bypass the system, cornering my director directly with a pitch about why she deserved another chance. My director forwarded it to me with the subject line, "Do you want me to block her?" I typed back one word. Yes, that was the last straw for her. A week later, my LinkedIn blew up with a post Melissa had made. This long, rambling screed about toxic friends who rise to power and forget where they came from. She never named me, but anyone who knew us could read between the lines. The comments weren't sympathetic. People called her bitter, unprofessional. Some even congratulated me in the replies. Watching her choke on the narrative she once controlled, I can't lie, it felt poetic. But the real closure didn't come from their meltdowns. It came the day I finally scraped those words off my car. The body shop called me to pick it up. When I walked out and saw the paint gleaming, no trace of never enough carved across the side, I just stood there for a minute. My reflection was clear again, whole. I ran my hand across the smooth surface, thinking about every time Melissa whispered, every time Jason barked, every time I laughed along just to survive. And now, gone. I didn't forward them the rejection emails. I didn't send a triumphant message. I didn't need to. The last thing they got from me was the same link I'd given everyone else. After that, silence. Because that's the final revenge, isn't it? Not just proving them wrong, not just watching them beg. It's realizing they don't even exist in the room you've built. They told me I'd never be enough. Now, they're locked outside, pounding at a door they swore I'd never reach, while I'm on the other side surrounded by people who actually see me. And the best part? I don't hear their whispers anymore. Just my own voice, finally loud enough to fill the room.